be composed of 21 questions that you either have to answer with a sentence, complete sentence, or they're multiple choice. So there are 4 of them that are multiple choice, and the remaining ones have to be answered with a complete sentence. There are also 2 that have to be answered with a paragraph. And then there's 1 that has to be answered with a page to a page and a half essay. So we'll go over the ones that are the short answer ones now. So the 4 that are multiple choice are, number 1, who is King Richard's mother? Now the answer that you'll be looking for is the Duchess of York. Don't confuse it with Queen Elizabeth and Queen Margaret and some of the other people that are in the book. The correct answer is the Duchess of York. Number 2, which of the following are Richard's brothers? Choose all that apply. Make sure you get both Clarence and King Edward IV, because both of them are his brothers. Number 3, who does Richard claim is using sorcery against him? That one is Queen Elizabeth. Number 4, who actually kills the princes in the tower? Richard, of course, orders their death, but the one that actually kills them is Tyrrell. Tyrrel. So pick that one out of the multiple choice list. All right, the others require a sentence answer. Number 5, what reason does Richard give in his opening speech for choosing to pursue his evil plan? In other words, he blames something in the way that he was made for his choices. What is it? Well, if you read the opening speech that he gives, he says that he was deformed and unattractive and unlovable. And because of that, he feels that he was driven to use deceit and violence to get what he wants because nobody's going to do it for him because they like him. Number 6, what do the murderers do with Clarence's body after they kill him? They put the body into a wine barrel, right? So they dump his body into a wine barrel. All right, the next question, number 7, asks you to name as many of the ghosts who visit Richard as you can. He has a lot of different ghosts that visit him. You don't have to name all of them. It's mostly the people that he killed, such as Prince Edward, King Henry VI, Clarence, Rivers, Grey, Vaughan. The ghosts of the princes come and visit him, the ghost of Hastings, the ghost of Anne. So it's mostly the people that killed him. So name as many of those as you can remember. Number 8, then. What are King Richard's final words in the play? Now, this line is one of the most famous from any Shakespeare play that is out there. And the line is, a horse, my kingdom for a horse. So that's number 8. 2 more from King Richard. Number 9, how does Richard trick Anne into marrying him? Now remember, he had previously killed Anne's husband, and so how is he going to convince her to be in love with him? Well, he says that he did it because the love of her beauty drove him to kill her husband, and secondly, he offers to let her kill him. So he says, if you will not forgive me, then please just kill me right now. Take this dagger and kill me. Number 10, last one from King Richard. What is Richard's state of mind toward the end of the play, and how can you tell? Well, he's obviously starting to lose it because he's seeing ghosts and he's becoming very paranoid. He thinks everyone's plotting on him, and he's not sane anymore. He's gone insane by the end. All right, then we have 11 questions from The Hobbit. Number 11. Who rescues Gandalf, Bilbo, and the dwarves from the wargs and orcs in the forest? You should remember that was the eagles swept down and picked them up out of the trees. Number 12. How is Smaug finally defeated? Bard shoots the black arrow and hits him in the bare spot on his chest that was not covered with diamonds and precious jewels. Number 13. How did they escape from the prison of the Elven King? Well, Bilbo packs them into barrels and seals them up, and the barrels are dropped through a trap door into the river and then floated down to Lake Town. Number 14, who and what is Gandalf? Gandalf is obviously a wizard, is what he's described as in here. He is the one that is setting up and arranging for Bilbo to go with them, and is kind of helping them plan their whole mission out. Now, one thing it does not tell you in that book, but you'll find out in other books, including the Silmarillion, which is written about the creation of Middle-earth, you will find out that he is actually an angel. He's one of the lesser angels. Okay? Number 15, who and what is Bilbo? He is a respectable hobbit. Right? He is very well respected. He also is a Baggins on his father's side and a Took on his mother's side. That becomes important in the later, it becomes important for why he would go on the mission. Because a Baggins is a respectable hobbit and would never go on those pesky adventures. But a Took lives by the river and they do all kinds of crazy things. So they might go on an adventure. 16, who and what is Smaug? Smaug is obviously the dragon who stole the dwarves' treasure and home and killed many of them when some of them were younger. The younger dwarves weren't even born at the time. Fili and Kili weren't even born at the time that Smaug came. But most of the others were alive. Number 17, what's the main goal of the adventure? Obviously to recover their kingdom, to get their gold back and to get the Lonely Mountain back. Number 18, what is the turning point in Bilbo's life and career? Well, Tolkien said when he gets knocked out inside of the goblin's tunnels and he's crawling along, it says he put his hand on something cold in the dark. And he didn't know it at the time, but it was the turning point of his career. So the finding of the ring. 19, what does it mean when it refers to Beren as a skin changer? It means sometimes he's a large man, so large in fact that it said that if Bilbo had wanted to, he could have trotted between his legs and his head wouldn't even have touched the fringe of the guy's outfit. That's how big he was. And other times he turned into a giant bear. Number 20, why do the men of the Long Lake agree to help the dwarves? Right, the men of the Long Lake agree to help the dwarves because there's a prophecy that says when the king under the mountain returns, the river will flow with gold. And so they expect to be compensated for this. Number 21, name the groups who participated in the Battle of the Five Armies. Now, the five armies, as Tolkien originally understood them, were men, elves, and dwarves versus goblins and dwarves. Now, I said you could also list one other group that participated at the end if you wanted to, and that would be the Eagles, because the Eagles did come at the end and help them win. Also, Beren himself appears in the form of a bear and helps them toward the end. All right, so that is the short answer questions. Then there are two questions that need to be answered with a paragraph. Number 1, discuss 2 events from the play King Richard III that illustrate that Richard was a tyrant. All right, so 2 stories in there, like the killing of the princes or different things like that. 2 stories that show that he was a tyrant that used his power over others and manipulated them and was not a good man. Number 2, discuss Gandalf in as much detail as possible. Be sure to include the following things. His appearance. So say that he was dressed in gray, that he wore a long cloak. Sometimes he had a hood. Other times he would wear a hat. He carried a staff. So mention things like that. He had a beard. He appeared to be older. Describe his character. Well, he's known for being honest and trustworthy among people outside of the Shire. Within the Shire, he's known for being a troublemaker because he takes hobbits off on adventures. What about his temperament? That's one of the other things you can talk about. He is quick to anger, but he's also quick to laugh. What are some of the deeds that he did? Well, obviously, he's well known for his fireworks during the time of The Hobbit. That's what they largely remember him for. But he also does a lot of other great deeds. He killed the great goblin. He helps them win the Battle of Five Armies. He does a lot of different things. Helps set up their trip for them, and so on and so forth. And what is he? He's a wizard, or you could even say angel. Then the rhetoric question requires between 1 and 1.5 pages. It should be Times New Roman 12 with 1-inch margins. All right, King Richard at the beginning makes excuses for why he is evil and why he turns out the way he does. He talks about how because he's deformed and ugly, nobody will love him and give him things because of him being nice, so instead he has to be a tyrant and a tricky, sneaky person. Here's your question then. What kinds of excuses do criminals today often use to place blame for their actions on other people or circumstances? All right? So, for example, the number one thing that people blame is their parents, right? They'll say, well, my dad used to beat me, and that's why I became a mass murderer. Or they'll say, I never knew my father, or I had a lot of tragedy in my early life, or different things like that. They'll blame things like that for their actions. The second part of the question is, in light of what you know about God's Word, do you agree or disagree with these arguments? And obviously you should disagree with most of them according to God's Word, because God's Word does not allow us to say, because I've had it bad, I have a right to make it bad for others. And so you would need to say things about that. And you would need to point out that there's lots of people in the Bible and also in history who had really bad times, but they continued to be decent people. And God blessed them and was able to work through them as well. So that's basically what's going to be on the test. If you have any other questions, let me know, especially Cosette, who wasn't here to ask questions during the lesson itself. All right, hope this helps. Bye.